So this is the last day for chapter 2 for the grade recovery notes. Today we're starting off with lesson 2.7. So first we're going to be graphing linear equations. Here are all the steps. You got to identify your B and your M, and then you'll plot your B, and then you'll move with your M. Some reminders before we get started is that remember if we go up or to the right, it's positive. And then if I go down or to the left, that's negative. And so I want to identify my B first. My B here is 5, so I'm going to write B equals 5. Okay, then I'm going to write my M. Your M is the number in front of the X. If your M is not a fraction, you can make it a fraction by adding a 1 underneath. So I have negative 2. So I'm going to write negative 2. And because it's not a fraction, I'm going to put a 1 so that it is a fraction. That way I know that because this is negative, I'm moving down. And because this is positive, I'm moving to the right. So then when I'm plotting my points, remember on the y-axis, so this one right here, I'm going to put a dot at 5. And then I'm going to move using the slope. So from this point, I'm going to go down 2 and to the right 1. I'm going to go down 2 and to the right 1. Remember, you only need 3 dots to make a line. So once you have those 3 dots, you can use your ruler or straight edge to connect them and make your line. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with example 2. So identify your B first. The B is your start, so my B is 1. If your M is not a fraction, you make it a fraction, but my M here is a fraction. So I'm going to write M is 1/3. Because the top number is positive, I'm going up, and the bottom number is positive, I'm going to the right. So on my y-axis again, I'm going to put a dot at positive 1. And then with my slope, I'm going to go up 1 and over 3. Up 1 and over 3. Then with your ruler or straight edge, you're going to connect them and make your line. Alright, so the only element we're going to add is that you also have to do this, but then you have to answer some key characteristics about your line. So the try at the bottom we'll do together. First we have to graph it, and then we're going to answer the characteristics. So just like the 2 that we previously did, I'm going to identify my B and my M. My B is negative 4. My M is a fraction, which is good, so I'm going to keep it as a fraction. Because the top number is positive, I'm going up. And because the bottom number is positive, I'm going to the right. Then I'm going to plot my line on my graph. So I'm going to put a dot at negative 4. Then I'm going to move with my slope. So I'm going to go up 1 and over 2. I'm going to go up 1 and over 2. Technically, we only need 3 dots, but I'm going to keep going because eventually I want to know where my x-intercept is. And so it'll be easier if I just keep going so it's clear for me what my intercept is. So then up 1 and over 2. Then with my ruler, I'm going to connect them. And I have my line. That's part 1. The second part is now identifying my key characteristics. Okay, so my x-intercept is where it touches on the x-axis. It touches right here at the number 8. But remember, an intercept is 2 numbers. It's a point. So my x-intercept is at 8, 0. Okay, my y-intercept is on the y-axis. It touches at negative 4, but I have to write it as a point, so 0, negative 4. My domain is my x's, so as I move to the left and to the right, because I go to the left forever and to the right forever, my domain here is all real numbers. My range is the y's, so my up, down. Because this goes up forever and down forever, my range is also all real numbers. And then for function, question mark, it's just asking if it's a function. So if I take my pen or pencil and I start on one end, I'm using the vertical line test or the pencil test to see if there are any points on top of each other. There are not, which is good. So this is a function. Okay, perfect. So now we're going to move on to the next page. So we're going to move on to lesson 2.8. Alright, so 2.8 is analyzing functions. So for this chapter, or for this lesson, sorry, you're going to be given different representations of functions, and we have to pull out information or identify different pieces. So here I have two people. I have Juan Carlos and I have Juanita, and they're folding cranes. And I have different representations. So part A says find the rule for Juanita, but I have the rule for Juan Carlos. So remember, the 4 is my M. Okay, that's my slope. But I have to figure out the rule for her. Okay, remember your B, so I have two pieces of information I need to find, the B and the M. The B is where it touches on the y-axis, so for Juanita, that's at 0. So my B is 0. My M, though, is a little bit more complicated. I can pick 2 points on this line and figure out how many up I go and how many to the right I go. So you can pick any 2 points you want. So I'll pick this one and this one. Then I'm going to draw my slope triangle. And I'm going to see how many up and to the right I go. So it looks like I go up 1, 2, 3 boxes. But keep in mind, my x or my y-axis is going up by tens. So it's not plus 3, it's plus 30. Okay, and then I'm moving to the right 2 boxes, but I have to look at my axis. I'm going from 10 to 20, so this is plus 10. So always make sure you look at the numbers. And then remember that your slope, your M, is always your y over your x. So my y here is plus 30, and my x here is plus 10. If I put that in my calculator, I have 30 divided by 10, which is 3. So I know that my M is 3 and my B is 0. Remember, rule or linear model or equation are all in the form of y equals mx plus b. Okay, I know my M and I know my B. So my rule for Juanita is y equals 3x plus 0. Part B says, who's folding cranes the fastest? So for this one, you need to compare your M's. So I need to compare my M's for both of them. So Juan Carlos has an M of 4, and Juanita has an M of 3. Which one is bigger? Well, 4 is bigger than 3. So Juan Carlos is folding the cranes faster because he has a greater rate of change, or a bigger rate of change, a bigger slope. Okay, so when I write my sentence, I'm going to say Juan Carlos is folding cranes faster because he has a bigger rate of change. Remember, rate of change is also fancy for slope, so we're just comparing the slopes. His M, his slope is bigger, so that's why we're choosing him as the one that folds them the fastest. Okay, so we're going to use that same concept of comparing M's for the next 2 problems. Okay, example 2. So I have 2 cars here that have traveled after leaving a football game, and I have line A and I have line B. Okay, which car is traveling faster? So here you have both lines on one graph. I'm going to highlight each one. So this is B and this is A. When you're just given lines and you're comparing them on the same graph like this, you want to see which one is steeper, which one is higher than the other one. And so if I'm looking at my 2 lines, B is higher than A. So which car is traveling faster? Well, car B. So car B is traveling faster because it has a steeper slope. It has a steeper line, so meaning that the B is much steeper. Steepness is like how slanted it is. It's more slanted than A. It's because it's on top of A. And we know that because we see both of the lines on the same graph. Okay, part B says, what does the point 280 represent? That's right here. So at that point, we can see that both of the lines cross. So both cars are at the same spot at the same time. And so that's what this point represents. This is my X and this is my Y. My X is represented by the time in hours, right? This is my X axis. And my Y is represented by 80. That's my distance in miles, right? This is my Y axis. So when I write my sentence, I want to include those units that are on my axes. So my sentence is going to be something like, at hour 2, the cars were both 80 miles away. Right? The 2 is being represented by the x-axis, so that's the time in hours, so hour 2. And the y is the 80. 80 is the distance in miles, so we write 80 miles. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to move on to the next page. All right, so I have 2 people here. I have Selena and I have Steven, and they're giving me different representations, one for each person. I have to find the slope for each person. Okay. Keep in mind, if I have a table, this is my X and this is my Y. Okay, I want to find the difference, or my change in X, and my change in Y. Okay, you only have to find it for 2 sets of points. You don't have to do it for all 4. So to go from 2 to 4, I'm adding 2. And to go from 600 to 1000, I'm adding 400. I don't need to keep going. I just need to find one set of a difference, and then I can go ahead and write my changes. So my X is plus 2, and my Y is plus 400. So then when I'm writing my slope, remember it's my M, it's always Y over X, so I have plus 400 over plus 2. If I divide those, if I put those in my calculator, I get 200. Sorry, that's the bell. Okay, so let's do the same thing for Steven. However, I have a graph. Pick any 2 points. So I'll pick this one. The point's are already there for you. I'm going to pick this one, and I'm going to pick this one. Then I'm going to draw my triangle. I want to see how many up I go and how many to the right I go. So it looks like I'm going up 1, 2, 3 boxes, but be mindful, I'm going from 800 to 1400. That's 600. Okay, and then I'm going to the right, which is positive, and I'm going over 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes, and that's going to be plus 4 because my x-axis is going up by 1s. So then when I'm calculating my slope, I'll do it on the side over here. It's my y over my x, so 600 over 4. If I put that in my calculator, 600 divided by 4, I get 150. So my m is 150. Okay, it's asking me who ran faster. So I'm comparing the m's. So for Steven, he got 150. And for Selena, she got 200. Just like the first problem that we did, I'm comparing and seeing which one is bigger. The 200 is bigger, so that means Selena ran faster. So when I write my sentence, I'm going to say Selena ran the race faster because she has the higher rate of change. So you're always comparing the slopes or you're comparing the steepness of the lines. Okay, last lesson. We are going to do 2.9, day 1. So writing equations of lines given 2 points. There are two useful equations that you need to know. That is y equals mx plus b, but also how to calculate the slope. So y2 minus y1 and x2 minus x1. Okay, the most important thing when you do these problems is to label correctly. So I have to find my slope first. Okay, I want to label my x and my y for my points. So I have x and y, x and y. The first point that comes in the sentence is number 1. The second point that comes in my sentence is number 2. You see how I have 4 numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to plug those 4 numbers into their correct spot because I have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. All right, the first number that comes up in my equation is y2. y2 is being represented by the number 11. So first I'm going to write 11. Then I have the minus. y1 is being represented by the number 7. Then I'll do the bottom. x2 is being represented by the number 4. Okay, minus. And x1 is being represented by the number 2. Then I subtract the top and I write my answer. I subtract the bottom and I write my answer. So 11 minus 7 is 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. Then I want to simplify this, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So my slope, my m, I did all of that work, my m is 2. That's part 1. The second part of this is finding my b. So once I have my m, I need to find my b. The b I don't know, so I'm going to leave it blank. Then I'm going to use x and y to help me. To identify where your x and your y is you have to pick one point entirely to use. So either the first one or the second one. You can't mix them, so you have to pick one. So I like to circle the one that I use. So I'm going to pick the first one, so I'm going to circle it. So the 2 is in the x spot, so I'm going to write 2 here. And the 7 is in the y spot, so I'm going to write 7. I'm going to plug these 3 numbers into this formula. The only letter that doesn't get a number is the letter B. Okay, so instead of y, I'm going to plug in 7. Instead of m, I'm going to plug in 2. Instead of x, I'm going to plug in 2. And then I'm going to write plus b because I don't know what that is. That's what I'm solving for. Okay, now I have 7 equals 2 times 2, which is 4. Okay, plus b. I need the b by itself. So you see this 4? I got to do the opposite of it. Since it's positive, I'm going to subtract it. 7 minus 4, I get 3, and then I bring down my b. So in order to write my equation, I need the 2, right, because this is my m, and I need the b. I plug these 2 numbers into their correct spot for m and for b. The other 2, the y and the x, will stay the same. So when I'm writing my equation, I'm going to get y equals my m, which is 2, and my b, which is 3. So that ends up being my equation. Okay, once you have that, turn to the next page and we're going to do 2 more. Okay, so just like the first example that we did, we are going to label our x and our y. So this is x and y, this is x and y. The first point is number 1, the second point is number 2. Okay, I'm going to plug them into the slope formula. If you don't remember, it's on the previous page. So I'm going to have y2, which is 1, minus y1 is negative 2. So I'm going to write negative 2. Okay, x2 is 6, and x1 is 4. Sometimes we get the double negative. Just be very careful. That is okay. That can happen. And make sure that you're very mindful of the negatives. Okay, I'm going to do the top and then I'm going to do the bottom. Well, I know 6 minus 4 is 2. And then I have 1 minus negative 2, which is 3. I'm going to simplify that and see if it changes. And it stays the same. So this is going to be my slope, this 3 over 2. So I'm going to leave it the same. I'm not going to do anything else with it. So then when I'm writing my information on the side over here, I'm going to have m equals 3 over 2. Okay, then I write b equals. That's what I'm trying to find, so it's blank. Then I have x equals, and then y equals. You have to pick one point entirely, either the first one or the second one. This time I'm going to use the second one, so I'm going to circle all of it. The 6 is in the x spot, so I'm going to write 6 here. And the 1 is in the y spot, so I'm going to write 1 here. So I'm going to plug everything back into my equation of y equals mx plus b. So I have 1 equals 3 over 2 times 6 plus b. I'm going to put this in my calculator, this 3 over 2 times 6. So 3 over 2 times 6. I get 9. So I get 1 equals 9 plus b. I'm going to subtract the 9 from both sides. And I get negative 8 equals b. Remember, you need your m, this number, and you need your b. When you have both of those numbers, you can write your equation in y equals mx plus b. So I have y equals my m, and then plus my b. My b is negative, so I'm going to write minus 8. So when you're doing these, just be very careful. Stay organized, be mindful of the negatives, and just be very clear with your work because it gets very confusing. It's a lot of steps. Okay, so for the try it at the bottom, I am going to have you try it by yourself, so you can pause the video right here. Once you are done, you can go ahead and unpause it so that I can show you the answer for the try. Alright, so this is the answer you should have gotten for the try it at the bottom. You get a slope of negative 1/2, and you get a b of 2. It doesn't matter which point you pick, so if you had picked the first point, at the end you should still get 2 equals b. We get the same answer. Then ultimately my equation is y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. Alright, so that is it for the notes. Make sure that you turn those in, and good luck on your retake.